In the village of Umuoka, a rich man died on a Tuesday morning. By Thursday, his children had already counted his money in their hearts. The lawyer opened the document and began to read. I, Chief Obiora Nwadike, being of sound mind, leave my house, my land, my palm plantation, and everything I own to Adaeze, the daughter of my late housemaid. The room went completely silent. Read that again. I have read it correctly. That is a lie. That girl cannot even talk. Every head in that room turned to the corner. A girl of 17 stood there, with a tray of untouched drinks in her hands. She did not shout. She did not celebrate. She did not defend herself, because Adaeze had not spoken a single word in 12 years. There is a final line. He wrote it himself. It says only 4 words. She knows the reason. The tray slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. To understand what happened in that room, we must go back. Back to the night this village would rather forget. 14 years earlier, Umuoka was a small farming village of red earth and palm trees, and in the middle of that village stood one house that did not look like the others. A big house, a painted house, a house with a generator and a gate. It belonged to Chief Obiora Nwadike. He owned the palm plantation. He owned the lorries that carried the palm oil to the city. Half the village worked on his land, and the other half owed him something. But wealth alone did not make people respect him. What made them respect him was his wife. Her name was Neka. She was the kind of woman who could not sleep if she knew a child in the village had gone to bed hungry. Madam Neka, God will bless you. Take it and feed your children. Don't thank me. Just do the same for somebody else tomorrow. She had 3 children. Emeka, the first son, 15 years old and already proud. Chidinma, 12, who copied everything her brother did. And Uche, the last born, only 3 years old at the time. Then one afternoon, a woman walked through that gate, carrying a small bag and holding the hand of a little girl. Good afternoon, madam. They said in the market that you are looking for someone to help in the house. And the child? She is mine. Her father died last year. I have nowhere to keep her. Then keep her here. What is her name? Adaeze. Adaeze, the king's daughter. That is a very big name for a very small girl. Neka bent down and looked at the child properly. The girl looked back at her without fear. Good afternoon, ma. Nobody in that compound knew it yet, but those were among the last words that girl would speak for many years. For 2 years, life in that compound was good. Ifeoma cooked and cleaned. Adaeze followed baby Uche everywhere like a second shadow. Adaeze, where is Uche? He is sleeping, ma. I covered him. Neka began to treat the girl like her own. She bought her clothes. She let her eat at the table, and that was where the trouble began. Because Emeka noticed, Mama, why is the housemaid's daughter eating our food at our table? Because she is a child, and children eat. She is a servant. Emeka. One day you will learn that the way you treat people who cannot help you is the only true measure of who you are. He did not learn it. Not that day, not for 12 more years. Then came the night of the 11th of June. Chief Obiora had traveled to the city for business. He would not return until morning. There was no light that night, so Aneka lit the kerosene lamp in the parlor and went to bed early. Ifeoma had traveled to bury her own mother in another village. Only the children remained inside that house. At around 11 o'clock, Emeka came out of his room quietly. Emeka was 17 years old that year. He owed money to some boys in the next town, boys who did not ask twice. He knew where his mother kept her money, inside a wooden box, under her bed, so that night he carried the kerosene lamp into his mother's room while she slept, and he knelt down to open that box. Who is there? Emeka? What are you doing in my room? Mama, it's nothing. Is that my box in your hand? He panicked. He stood up too fast, and his elbow struck the lamp. The kerosene poured across the floor, and the flame followed it like a living thing. In seconds, the curtain caught. In seconds more, the whole room was orange. Emeka, Emeka, help me. He ran. He did not turn back. He ran out of that room, out of that house, and he did not stop until he was standing outside in the compound, shaking. Adaeze was 7 years old. She had been sleeping on a mat behind the kitchen. The smoke woke her. She came running into that compound, and she saw Emeka standing there. She saw Chidinma screaming at the window, and she heard something that no 7-year-old should have to hear, a baby crying inside a burning house. Uche! Uche! Don't go inside! Are you mad? Don't go inside! She went inside. She crawled under the smoke the way her mother had once taught her. She found the boy in his cot, coughing, 3 years old, and she dragged him out through the back door and laid him on the wet ground, and then she heard the second voice, from the room at the end of the corridor, "Somebody help me, please, somebody," and that little girl, 7 years old, stood up and went back in. The whole village came with buckets that night. Men climbed the fence, women screamed into the smoke. They found Adaeze lying in the corridor, unconscious, 3 steps from the door of Neka's room. 3 steps. They pulled her out by her legs. They did not reach Neka in time. Chief Obiora arrived at 7 in the morning to find his house black, his wife covered with a cloth in the compound, and his youngest son alive on a mat, breathing. Who brought Uche out of the house? Who saved my son? And that is where the lie was born. Papa, it was the housemaid's daughter. She took the lamp into Mama's room to look for something, and she knocked it down. What are you saying? I saw her, Papa. I was the one that carried Uche out. But when I went back for Mama, the fire was too much. It's true, Papa. I saw everything from my window. Chidinma was 14. She had seen nothing but smoke. But she had spent her whole life agreeing with her brother, and she agreed with him one more time. And there was nobody to say otherwise. Ifeoma was away burying her mother. Uche was 3 years old and could not talk properly. And Adaeze was lying in a clinic with her lungs full of smoke. When she finally woke up, 4 days later, she opened her mouth to explain what had happened, and nothing came out. Talk to me. Adaeze, talk to me, please. Just say mama for me. The doctor called it damage from the smoke, and shock on top of it. He said the voice might come back in weeks. It did not come back in weeks. It did not come back in months. Sometimes the body decides to close a door. Only the body can open it again. And so, a 7-year-old girl, who had run into a burning house twice, became, in the mouth of that entire village, the girl who burned Madam Neka alive. From that day, Umuoka gave her a new name. They called her the Cursed Girl. That is the one. That is the girl that killed Madam Neka. See how God punished her. He removed her tongue. Children threw sand at her on the road. Market women refused to sell to her. When she passed, mothers pulled their own children closer, and she could not answer. Not one single time. For 12 years, she carried an accusation she could not put down and could not argue with. Only 2 people in that compound never called her a murderer. One was a boy who was too small to remember why. The other was her mother. Chief Obiora did not send them away. Some people said it was kindness. The truth was simpler. The man was drowning in grief, and he did not have the strength to make any decision at all. So Ifeoma stayed and worked. And she worked, and she worked. And 5 years after the fire, her body finally refused. Adaeze, come closer. Listen to me. I know what you did that night. I know it. Whether they believe it or not does not change it. She pulled a thin brass bracelet off her own wrist, the one she had worn every day of her life. Wear this, and when they call you that name, don't fight them. Just be good. Be good until the truth gets tired of hiding. Ifeoma died that same week. Adaeze was 12 years old, and she was now completely alone in a compound where everybody hated her. After her mother's death, Adaeze became everything her mother had been. She woke before the sun. She swept the compound. She cooked, she washed, she carried water. Adaeze, my white gown. I said I wanted it washed by morning. She never received wages, not 1 naira, because in that house, they said she was working to pay for a life she had taken. You will work here till you die, and it will still not be enough. And every time he said something like that, she looked at him, just looked, and Emeka would be the first one to look away. He never understood why he could not hold her eyes, but he could not. But there was one person in that house who treated her differently, Uche, the last born. The boy she had carried out of the fire. He was 15 now. He did not remember the fire. He only knew one strange thing that he had never told anybody. Adaeze, can I ask you something? Since I was small, I have been having one dream, always the same dream. There is smoke everywhere, and somebody is carrying me. I cannot see the face, I only see the arm. She stopped peeling, and on that arm there is a bracelet, a yellow one, flat, like brass. I have described it to Emeka before. He says I am imagining things. Adaeze slowly pulled her sleeve down over her wrist, and she said nothing. Because she could not say anything. By this time, Chief Obiora was an old man. His chest was bad, his hands shook, and a man who is close to the end begins to look at things he ignored for years. He began to watch that girl. He watched her feed the goat that Chidinma forgot. He watched her give her own food to a beggar at the gate, and then eat nothing herself. He watched her nurse him through 3 weeks of fever without one complaint. Adaeze, do you hate me? She shook her head. Why? I let this whole village call you a murderer for 12 years. I never once asked you what happened. She shrugged, and she went back to sweeping. A murderer does not look like that. A murderer does not look like that at all. The next morning, the old man sent for an exercise book and a pencil from the market. Sit down. You cannot talk. Fine, but God did not take your hands. Write your name. She had never been to school for one day in her life. She held the pencil like a knife, so he taught her. Every evening, for 2 years, that old man taught that girl to read and to write in the back room where nobody could see them. Again, Adaeze, and on the night she wrote a full sentence by herself, he read it and he began to cry like a child, because the sentence said, I did not do it, Papa. 2 months later, an old man came to that gate. His name was Papa Ejike. He had been the night gateman of that compound 13 years earlier, and he had disappeared 2 weeks after the fire, and nobody had asked why. Chief, I am a sick man now. I have come to remove a stone from my chest before I die. Sit down, talk. The night of the fire, I was at my post. I saw everything. I saw who ran out of that house first, and I saw who ran into it. Say it. Your son ran out. The small girl ran in, twice. The old man's cup fell from his hand. The next morning, Emeka came to my house. He gave me 80,000 naira, and he told me to leave this village and never return. I was a poor man, Chief. I took it, and I have not slept well for 13 years. That night, Chief Obiora called his first son into the parlor and asked him one question. Emeka, on the night your mother died, what were you doing in her room? And in that moment, the old man got his answer. Not from Emeka's mouth, from Emeka's face. Papa, who has been talking to you? Is it that girl? She cannot even talk. I did not mention any girl. Papa, get out of my sight. Get out before I do something a father should not do. And that was the last real conversation between that father and that son. The following week, Chief Obiora sent for his lawyer. Chief, I must warn you, your children will fight this in every court in this state. Let them fight. I have spent 12 years being a coward. Allow me to be a man for one afternoon. And should I write the reason inside the document? No. If I write the reason, they will argue with the reason. Write only this. She knows the reason. Let the truth come out of her hand, not my mouth. That is the only way this village will ever believe it. It was the last clever thing that old man ever did, and he did not live long enough to see whether it would work. Chief Obiora Nwadike died on a Tuesday morning in his sleep, with an exercise book on his chest. The whole village came for the burial. Emeka wore the finest black. He stood at the front and received condolences like a king who had just been crowned. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am now the head of this family, and at the back, behind everybody, a girl with a brass bracelet on her wrist cried quietly, and nobody came to console her, because in that village she was still the one who had brought death into that house. And so we returned to that Thursday, to the broken tray on the floor, and the 4 words nobody could explain. She poisoned his mind. That is what she did. She has been giving that old man something in his food. She waited until he was weak and confused, and she manipulated him. Barrister, this document is useless. The document is valid. It was signed before 2 witnesses and myself. If you wish to challenge it, you may go to the High Court in the city. Court? I am not going to any court. This is a village matter. We will take it to the elders. Let the whole of Umuoka sit down, and let this girl explain how she got my father's property. He said it as a threat. He believed it was the safest ground in the world for him. After all, how does a person defend herself in front of the entire village when she cannot speak one word? The gathering was called for the following Saturday, under the big udala tree in the village square. The whole of Umuoka came. Traders closed their shops. Farmers left their farms. Nobody wanted to miss it. 4 elders sat on the carved stools, and at the center sat Igwe Namdi, the oldest man in that village, 91 years old, with eyes that had watched 3 generations lie to him. Emeka Nwadike, you called this gathering. Stand up and speak. Elders of Umuoka, 13 years ago, this girl and her mother came into our compound as strangers. We fed them, we gave them shelter, and what did she do? She burned my mother alive in her own bedroom. The crowd erupted. And now, 12 years later, she has taken advantage of a sick old man and stolen everything that belongs to his children. I am asking this village one question. Is that justice? No! Never! Throw her out! She should not even be standing among us. She should have been driven out of this village the day my mother died. Enough. Bring the girl forward. She walked to the center of that circle alone, 17 years old, in a faded wrapper, with hundreds of faces around her, and not one friend among them. Adaeze, you have heard what has been said against you. What is your answer? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Nothing. You see, she has no answer. Silence is the answer of a guilty person. God has closed her mouth because of what she did. Silence. This is a hearing, not a market. And in that moment, standing in the middle of that crowd, Adaeze did something nobody expected. She raised her hand, and she pointed at the exercise book she had carried with her, and she pointed at the Igwe. She wants to write. Somebody bring that book to me. Igwe, with respect, she cannot even read. Whatever is inside that book, somebody else wrote it. And that was Emeka's mistake. That was the mistake that finished him. Who is the somebody else you are talking about? How would I know? Anybody in that compound could have. Igwe, may I speak? The whole square turned. Uche Nwadike, 15 years old, the last born of the dead man, stood up in the middle of the crowd and walked forward. Uche, sit down. Sit down. This is not your matter. It is my matter more than it is yours. I am the one that was inside that house. Speak, my son. I was 3 years old. I remember only one thing, and I have remembered it my whole life. Somebody carried me out of that smoke. I could not see the face, but I saw the arm, and on that arm there was a bracelet. Brass. Flat, old, Emeka. Show this village your arm. Show them the bracelet you were wearing that night. Emeka's mouth opened, and closed, and opened again. Adaeze. Show them yours. And that girl lifted her sleeve, and the sun caught the brass on her wrist, and 400 people made one single sound at the same time. A bracelet? A bracelet is nothing. Half the women in this village wear brass. Then let an old man help you. The crowd opened, and Papa Ejike came through with his walking stick. Ejike, you disappeared from this village 13 years ago. I did, and I want to tell this village why. On the night of the fire, I was the gateman of that compound. I was awake. I saw Emeka Nwadike come out of that house first, before the fire reached the parlor. He did not carry anybody. He stood in the compound, and he watched. I saw that small girl run inside. I saw her come out with the baby. And then, before God who is listening to me, I saw her turn around and go back inside for the mother. 2 weeks later, that boy standing there gave me 80,000 naira and told me to leave Umuoka forever. I took the money. I have carried that sin for 13 years, and I am too old to carry it into my grave. The square went completely silent. Barrister, read what the girl has written. I was 7 years old. I woke up because of the smoke. I ran outside, and I saw Brother Emeka standing in the compound doing nothing. I heard Uche crying, so I went inside and carried him out through the kitchen door. Then I heard Mama Neka calling for help. She was calling anybody, so I went back. I could not open her door. It was hot. I was calling her, and she was calling me, and then I did not hear her again. When I woke up in the clinic, everybody was already saying I did it. I opened my mouth to tell them the truth, and my voice was gone. So for 12 years, I have been the girl who killed the woman who was kind to me. Papa Obiora taught me to write these words with his own hand. He said the truth does not need a loud voice, it only needs a witness. He was my witness, now you are. There was not one dry eye under that tree, not one. Emeka Nwadike, stand before this village and swear on the grave of your mother that this girl is lying. He opened his mouth, and 13 years of lies came out of his legs first, because his legs stopped holding him, and that proud man went down into the dust in front of everybody. I was stealing from her. That is the truth. I owed money, and I went into her room to take from her box, and she woke up, and I knocked the lamp, and I ran. I ran. I heard her calling me, and I ran. Emeka, what are you saying? You told me it was her. You told me you saw her. I have not slept a full night in 13 years. Every night I hear her voice calling my name. He crawled across that dust to where Adaeze was standing, and he took hold of the edge of her wrapper. I am not asking you to forgive me. There is no forgiveness for what I did. I let them call you a murderer. I watched them throw sand at you on the road. I watched, and I said nothing. Hear the judgment of Umuoka. The girl Adaeze is innocent, and has always been innocent, and this village has wronged her every single day for 12 years. The will of Chief Obiora Nwadike stands. Everything he owned belongs to her, and Emeka Nwadike is banished from this village for the remainder of his life. And then, something happened that no elder had planned for. The girl stepped forward, and she took the exercise book, and she wrote one line, and she handed it to the Igwe. Do not banish him. 12 years of silence taught me what it costs a person to lose their home. Let him stay, and let him work the land he tried to steal, and give 1/2 of the plantation to Uche, because he was the only one who ever asked me what I remembered. The old man read it twice. Then he folded it and looked at that girl for a long time. In 91 years, I have judged thieves, I have judged killers, and I have judged liars. Today, for the first time, I have judged a case where the only person in this square with clean hands is the one we accused. That evening, when the crowd had gone, Adaeze walked alone to the grave of Chief Obiora Nwadike and knelt down in the red earth. She put her hand flat on the ground. She opened her mouth the way she had opened it 1,000 times in 12 years, expecting nothing, and a sound came out, small, cracked, barely a whisper, but a sound. Papa, her voice came back that day, and the first word it said was the name of the only man who had ever believed her without needing her to speak. But as she knelt there, she did not know one thing. Inside that exercise book, on the very last page, in the old man's handwriting, there was one more sentence that the lawyer had not read aloud in the square. And that sentence was about her mother. Because Ifeoma had not come to that compound by accident 13 years ago, she had come looking for somebody. If this story touched you, comment the word truth below